back to the Today Show on the Disability Channel. Our guest is Wally Farrison from Cue Cards by Wally. Wally, you had mentioned that you just hired on somebody, and I was going to ask you this later, but I'm going to ask you this now. Back in, correct me if I'm wrong, 1980, when the story goes, your brother called you and said there was an opening at the Cue Card department, and he wasn't going to recommend you for the job. He was just kind of telling you to annoy you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, 1990. Don't. I'm not that old,
My
Christopher, but
mistake.
that's okay. That's okay. Um, yeah, he at the time was working at the show. He was working his way up as a writer. He was a receptionist, and then he was an intern, and then a receptionist, and so he knew a lot of the people there. And he was just starting to work on the Late Night with David Letterman show. And yeah, he called me and said, "There's an opening in the QCard department." And I was like, "You did you recommend me? That's great." And he was like, "No." He's like, "I know you have terrible handwriting." And I was like, "What are you talking?" He goes, "Let them tell me that, not you. You know, you're not that hard." He's like, "All right, if you want to try it." So I went in there and I wrote up some cards, and they said they've seen worse, which I think was being very, very polite. But I think because they knew my brother, they gave me a shot at it. And 32 years later, I'm still here. But my handwriting was really bad. That's I think the most ironic thing of this whole my whole career was I had great grades in elementary school, middle school, high school, but every single report card I got said worst handwriting you've ever seen. And now I make my living with my handwriting. So it's
So
kind of crazy.
when you hired on this new person that you're training,
Yeah.
what's that interview process look like for your department?
I'm always, it's usually we find people through friends of somebody already working there or a friend of mine, like my son who has a lot of friends. He's at college. He's looking to get into the business, but he's got friends from high school that have graduated and are in the city, New York City now, and looking for work. And I know them. The thing that I look for first is a personality, a good personality, because it's long hours sitting behind the scenes, writing. You're right on top of people now, and you want somebody that's going to get along with everybody. Someone with a good attitude. That's the first thing, and then we just bring them in, and then we just have them print cue cards and see what their handwriting's like. And then if it's decent after a day or two, then we'll progress them further up the thing. But it's personality and penmanship. Those are the two things I really look for.
Okay. Yeah, if you're working those 12, 18 hours, the last thing you want
Yeah,
is, "Oh, I got to go to work with you."
exactly, exactly. And working at Late Night with Seth Meyers for the last 8 years, they've done such a great job of hiring people that are nice to each other and having that keeping that attitude from the top down, Mike Shoemaker and Seth Meyers, of being nice to every single person that works on that show and respecting everybody that works in that show. And it really shows, I think, through the show that they do. And it's a um, uh, cool thing to follow, that I like to do as well. It's just like I want nice people working for me because this entertainment business is hard enough as it is. And let's have nice people working there, and it'll be hopefully we can make it a little bit better and fun at work.
Well, it's that old saying, if you like your job and like the people you work with, you never work a day in your life. And
That's
32
right.
years later,
That's right. That's right. Yep. I can't believe I've been in that same building 32 years. It's crazy.
that's
It's
amazing.
crazy.
Now, um,
Yeah.
actually, in some of the episodes with SNL and your Instagram, along with Seth Meyers, they cut to you and you have the N95 mask on. COVID, we get it, but there's
Yeah.
something taped, glued, or stuck to the side of your mask.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the famous yellow sponge?
Oh, the sponge. Yeah. My wife was trying to figure a way to market that to people, but I was like, no one's going to want to buy a little sponge to stick on their face, honey. It's always the business person in there. Yeah. So when I started 32 years ago, in pulling cards, when you're pulling cards, sometimes it's hard to grasp, it's hard to get them, like it's hard to get your finger in there. So I would lick my finger to get a better grip on the card, to get in between them and pull them real good. So I would do this, I would do that, and the guy that trained me, Tony Mendez, said that's a bad habit to get into. And I was like, it's too late. It's too late. I have to do it. So 30 years later, when COVID came in, and I was like, oh no, I can't lick my finger anymore. I've got a mask on and a face shield. There's no way I could do this. It's like, what am I going to do? And I was like, okay, what where can I get what a sponge, little sponge. So I went to the props guy, Jimmy Riley, and I was like, Jimmy, I need to get a sponge. Can you first? So we had the mask and then the face shield. So the first iteration of it was glue the sponge onto the face shield, and that's what we did. And that worked. I glued it kind of near where my mouth is. People laughed. People made fun of me. The host would come in each week and he's like, "What's that for? Why do you have a sponge on your face mask?" And I'd have to explain the whole thing. And they were like, "Oh, that's actually pretty smart." And then when the face shields went away last year, I was like, "Okay, what am I going to do now? Because I have the mask." And Jimmy Riley again, props guy, came up. He put a paperclip through the sponge, and I put the mask straps through this paperclip in the sponge, and it attaches there. And it just helps me get a grip on the card. I don't panic, and I can do my job effectively. But it does look funny and weird. And Seth Meyers has a love hate relationship with it, but it's all in good fun.
Now, back in the '90s, you correct me if I'm wrong. You kind of got to start writing on a show, Wienerville. You also wrote for
Yes.
Celebrity Deathmatch as well, which was this
Yep.
claymation before its time.
Yeah.
Um, what happened to Wienerville?
Wienerville, it's funny you should ask. I just get an email from somebody. They're doing a 30, it's got to be like the 30th reunion or I think maybe a 30th reunion of it. And they're going to do a Zoom reunion that I was asked to participate in. Um, so that was just a show. I went to school. I went originally, I took the cue card job 32 years ago to get my foot in the door. I wanted to be a writer. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write comedy, wanted to start in TV and then go to movies. It's always been my dream to do that. So when I got the job at Q Cards, I wanted to make connections, and I did. And I started writing for Wienerville and Celebrity Deathmatch, and I wrote that one episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And I wrote for Weekend Update. That was my start. Really, I started writing jokes for Norm Macdonald and Weekend Update, and then that allowed me to write for other things. When people saw that I could get jokes on Saturday Night Live, they trusted that I could write other things. So, yeah, it was just a cool thing to do. But it was always $500 a year, $800 a year. It was never enough to support myself. So that stuff was fun and everything, but Q Cards was where I was making my money, and then I got better at it, and then I started my company, and then I kind of never looked back from there. But the writing is always still in me. I have a book from my 32 years of doing cue cards in me that
Yeah.
I'm waiting to do because I
Oh,
have to wait till I stop working on SNL or it goes off the air before I can really write that. But it's in my head. Some of it's on paper already, and that'll probably be my next project after a little while.
well, when that book comes out, let us know because one, I'd love a copy of it, but certainly love to
Yes,
talk to you about it. When you
of
talk
course.
about writing, you can see the passion in your face and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautiful to see. You're working on these two iconic shows. Is there any, Wally Ferriston going to be doing a movie or a TV show? Are you going to get back to 100% writing outside of the novel that you're creating?
Probably not writing that kinds of stuff. I am looking into doing some more acting, which has been more recent in my thing. So you might be seeing me in some commercials down the road. I'll just tease that. Maybe even playing in Canada. You never know. But yeah, I'm looking more on the acting thing. Just being, 57 and getting up there, and the drive to do too much is not there anymore. The work is keeping me busy. Working like starting next week. I'll work Seth Meyers Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday Night Live Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So 6 days a week for the next 3 weeks, and long hours for when SNL is in session. That keeps me busy enough. So um, the creative stuff I get to do on Seth is keeping me busy for right now.
All right. Well, when that book comes out, and if you are playing up
Yeah,
in Canada, make sure you send me a message. I'd love to
for
meet up with
sure,
you. We are
for
going to take
sure,
a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
sure.